Here we have my 2015 Jeep Rubicon. The other day I was driving it, and as soon as I pulled out of the garage, I noticed that the steering felt heavy. And so I went and I looked at some YouTube videos. I found like 3 different videos, and they all had different methods to do the repair. So there might actually be a 4th. I'm going to investigate that. V6, 3.8 liter, I believe. And one of the first things they have you do, take this off, and there's a plug here. It's always fun trying to figure out, now that they put locks on these plugs, which way you're supposed to take it off. There's a screw clamp here. I don't believe you have to take this one off. You can take the air cleaner off instead. There are 4 little latches. It should lift up relatively easily. It should. I just had this off not too long ago, cleaning the air cleaner. I vacuum them out occasionally to keep them a little bit cleaner. Gonna have to go get a screwdriver and loosen that. I've moved the camera to the other side of the Jeep here. There's a hose that is going to have to come off anyway from the air cleaner. It may be what's restricting it from moving up right there. Doesn't want to come up. Okay, we're going to take off the, I see what it is. These 2 bolts here are, helps if you can see them. There's 2 bolts here holding the air intake in. So I'm going to find a wrench that fits those, or a socket, and be right back. The next thing after that is, and you won't be able to see it if I loosen it, but right here is a screw type clamp. That's going to have to come off, and then all that ought to lift right off. So, as I always say on my videos, see the good, the bad, and the ugly. See where I make a mistake and have to go back and do things, because things aren't always as straightforward as they look. So I'm going to zoom in so that you can see better those 2 bolts and the screw here that holds the clamp on. I don't know that you'll be able to see that because it's down under, but it's the best shot I can get without getting in the way too much. probably should do this. It is a hex head screw. It'll be easier to just get me a little extension and reach down there and loosen it. But I'm going to do it the hard way. Okay, that's loose there, loose there. Comes out a whole lot easier when you loosen that. Now there is a wire, like I said, on here, but I'm trying to get this out so that I can show you how it's attached. Okay, so they've done a nice thing here. They have zip tied these wiring harnesses onto this. So I'm going to go get a pair of cutting pliers and take those off. I was going to see if I could take those off and reuse them in case somebody is watching this video and doesn't have a handy supply of zip ties. They are cut so close to the actual tie that you'd never get it back in, even if you could get it out. Zip ties tend to be that way. Remember to zip tie these back up out of the way when I'm done. Okay, now hopefully I can turn that over and get a view of the clip. And I can, but I'm going to have to move the camera to show it. So right there is the clip. I've taken the air intake off and turned it sideways. And now I'm going to zoom in on that little clip. And these things are always, camera doesn't want to focus if I zoom it that close. They can be, it seems like every single clip now has a locking mechanism on it. And there must be 20 different kinds. So this one here appears to have a little clip you depress right there. If you can see the pliers going in it, hopefully I'm getting that. But you just squeeze and it should pull out. If you don't know that and you try to just rip it off, you could pull some wires loose, damage it. Might not have a good good connection there afterwards. So once you've got that off, the next thing is to remove the air cleaner and its housing. And I'll vacuum that out before I put it back in, just because I have it out. And this thing, it appears, just pulls out. It's just got some studs on it. I'll show you that now that I've got it out. There's 3 studs that just go into rubber grommets that are in the place where it fits. Okay, after moving the camera again, there's the void where I took that housing from, and you can see the 3 rubber grommets in there. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to drain out as much of the fluid, which happens to be automatic transmission fluid in the power steering on these. And there's a reservoir right here. Make sure that's in the frame. Lift it up a little bit. There's a reservoir right here. And I'm going to take a pump that I have and try and drain that. Hopefully this pump is going to work. It's supposed to go into a bottle of fluid that you're trying to pump into, I guess mostly a differential. I had to jerry-rig the thing. I don't think I have a good enough seal right here. Back to the drawing board. I don't want to take that off with it full because that'll just create a mess. Okay, I found something that's gonna work. It's a medical pump for irrigating wounds that unfortunately my late wife had a need for, and I was actually the one doing it. But works for any liquid. So you have to improvise whatever you can do to make the job a little bit neater. So I am going to put this down and not bore you with me pumping this out for a few minutes. Be back when I'm done. It's always a good idea to make sure that it looks like you've got the right part, and this one does look like it's the correct part. So the next thing I'm going to do, and this is different from what anybody else has done, and I don't know if it's even possible, but I'm going to see if I can put the drain pan underneath the Jeep and take this off and turn it upside down so that the drain or the fluid goes into the catch pan. If I can do that, that'll make it a little bit neater, because no matter what you do, you can't get everything out of there. So that's our next step. Get the drain pan out of there, which just barely fits because I have a snowplow on this Jeep and it has an attachment to it. I still don't have it all the way under. I may have to raise that up just a wee bit with the jack. Okay, so what you see right here is the spout on the drain pan, and I can't get it to go all the way under, so I'm going to just jack up the front just enough to get that under. I'm going to need it under whether I can use it for the reservoir or not, because I'm going to want it under when I take the car steering pump off. That looks about as good as I can get it. So next step is going to be to loosen that and try to wedge it down in there. I don't think you're going to get a very good view of this, but it's the best I can do. Need an extension to get down in there with the socket. Might be difficult here. There's some wiring harnesses. Okay. I need to remove a hose here. Looks like it's going to be easier to remove that from the metal line than it will be to remove it from this plastic reservoir. There's some wiring harnesses in the way as well, and they may or may not be on your Jeep because, like I said, I do have a snowplow, so there's extra wiring in here. Okay, I'm going to need to go get a pair of channel locks to do that. Those pliers won't reach it in a way that's going to make it easy to do. This is from the driver's side looking toward the passenger side. I'm going to zoom in on that fitting that, or that hose connection that I'm trying to get off, and I cheated a little bit in that I already went over there and squeezed those two tabs and got it loose, which took a minute. Not like it's a really long time. So that is going back over to the actual I'm twisting this to try to break the hold on it. That line goes back over to the steering box. And I am going to go get another tool, which is actually for removing body clips that I think will help me remove that from the line. So I got the tool, and I'm going to show you what I was thinking, but I don't think the tool is going to work because of the size of this gap right here. I don't think it's going to allow me to get it on there and push the hose back because it won't catch on the thing here. Yeah, too big. So I have to try and do this kind of the old-fashioned way and just muscle it off. Sometimes it's the little parts like this that take you longer to do than the actual unbolting that because they just don't want to come off. There's I know that's probably getting in your way, but I think that's going to help me get the clearance I need to get that off of that nipple. And like I said, I've got extra wiring in here for it's actually the headlights for the snowplow. That's making it a little more difficult to get in here and work with it. It's coming. There it is. I'm going to try to just, okay, there. I've got it loose. There appears to be enough slack in that to wind it around it. Let me zoom out. I think I'm zoomed in a little bit. Too far for you to see what's going on. Okay, so that's the reservoir, which I'm going to try to route down here. I'm not going to be able to keep it from going all over the Jeep, but I think I can keep it from going all over my floor. Okay, that's on. This is the wire. It's an add-on piece for the harness for the snowplow light bar. So next thing is to remove that completely from the power steering pump. That might be hard to show while I'm doing it, but I'll give you a view of what it is I'm trying to accomplish. It's a little tough to see. This is the hose that is attached to that reservoir. And there's another one of those clips right down there that I'm going to need to pinch that and move it up on the hose. And they've got that. I guess it was easy to put on when they were making the Jeep, but it's in a tough position to get to. With it on the Jeep. I guess I could try to unbolt the power steering pump and then take that off, but it's also a little bit in the way of the pressure hose, the pressure line going over to the steering box. So it does get a little bit difficult to get in there. Okay, reaching that is going to be a problem. Let's proceed to the next thing, which is actually removing the belt from the pump. And here is the idler pulley. It has a 1/2 inch socket hole there where you can just stick an extension in it and should be able to get some slack into the belt. I'm standing at the right front corner of the Jeep, and I've got the my bad. I saw that extension. I thought it was the one I was talking about. Let's back this off so I can see where I'm talking about here. I have, okay, you can see it moving. I'm going to get a brighter light to make that more visible. Okay, you can see a little bit better. It's a good thing to always check the routing of your belts before you take them off. So this one goes around the power steering pump, underneath the idler arm tensioner, and then it comes up to the alternator. Let me back that off so that, actually that is backed off. It'd be hard to get close enough and see down in there and get far enough away that you can see the whole thing. But as I was saying, around the power steering pump, underneath the tensioner, goes up to the alternator, down to an idler pulley, and it's on the alternator side of that. It goes around that over to the air conditioning compressor. From the air conditioning compressor, it goes to another idler pulley down underneath the crankshaft pulley, up to another pulley that is also on the tensioner. Hopefully my head's not in the way. And then back around to the power steering pump. So it's a pretty convoluted route. So what you have to do, which I've already figured out, is you got to turn that, put pressure on that idler pulley, not idler, tensioner, counterclockwise, and you got to get enough on it to get it off of one of those pulleys, which hopefully you can see that. Hopefully that's all I have to do is get it off of the power steering pulley. There. So I used a breaker bar on an extension plus a cheater bar on the end of it in order to accomplish that. But I'm an old guy, so if you're stronger, you can do it easier. I'm going to take the breaker bar out of there and commence to working on the pump again. What seems to be working for me is this smaller pair of channel locks, I guess I'll call them for better, lack of a better name, but I need to get that up above there's a ridge on the top of that. I need to get it over that somehow. And it's easier said than done, because once you get that compressed and up to a certain point, then the tool is actually running into the belt or the hose. So I'm going to try to take it down off the other way. Normally I like to keep them on the hose so I don't forget to put them back on before I reassemble it and then go, oh darn, I gotta take it all apart now. The hose is spinning on there, so once I get that clamp off, it should come off pretty easily. But this might be one of those situations where I go, I'm shutting the camera off and concentrating on it, on removing it until I get it done. I'll turn the camera back on and tell you what I did, which is actually going to be exactly what I'm doing right now, which is, you know what, I just was able to, the hose is spinning, so maybe I can get a better shot at it from another angle. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to zoom in and see if you can see that. You actually can't see the clamp. Yes, if I tilt the camera forward, you can see the clamp I'm working on right down there. But I'm not sure the camera will stay there while I get my hands in here and work on it. Try a longer pair now that I have a better angle on it. These were slipping and I tightened them, so now they're not slipping, but I'm having trouble adjusting them. Pretty sure my arm's in the way, but I cannot help that. Okay, time to shut off the camera. You know what I'm doing. I'll let you know how long it takes for me to do that. As you can see, it's off. So what worked? What I did is I simply squeezed these as tight as I could, those two tabs, and pulled up on the hose. And the whole reservoir and hose came off. Now the other thing that's going to be tough, I'm sure, is I'm looking at the other connection to the, it goes to the steering box, steering gear, and that one is pretty rusted. Based on, I'm spilling stuff out even though I tried to drain everything. I'm going to hit that with some PB Blaster while I'm getting at the crowfoot line wrench attachments that I bought. So PB Blaster around it. One of the things, I'm in Ohio, northern Ohio, so we get a lot of snow, a lot of salt gets put on the roads. So everything is rusty. A lot of the videos I see are people working on stuff that looks like it's brand new. I don't get that. I don't get that luxury here. And you got to make sure that you soak around the line too, because that fitting has to rotate on the line. So I'm off to get that crowfoot. Tried every which way to get you a view of this. This is the fitting I'm talking about right here. I am going to try to take a wire wheel on a drill. I have an angle drill, fortunately. I'm going to try to clean that up because the 18-inch crowfoot line wrench won't go on without me cleaning off some of the crud from the rust. So I'm going to have to shut the camera off and be back when I'm done. I needed to get a wire wheel that was bigger in diameter here because the drill was actually hitting before I could get the wire wheel on the fitting. So one of the videos told me that it was an 18 millimeter, 18 slips, 17 can't get it on. So it must have rusted to something between 17 and 18. I'm going to go see if I can get a SAE wrench that will fit that. Okay, I just went through removing that and I wasn't recording. So go over it a little bit with that actually doing the work. I'm trying to get more room to get at this fitting down here. So there was a bolt here, and in order to remove that bolt I had to move this return line from the steering gear, and it was held in with one of those body style clips, just a plastic clip, and this tool actually removed that very nicely. So now I'm going to try to remove this thing. And it appears to be connected to a whole lot more, so I'm not sure that's going to work. Thought I'd check that out before. I didn't notice this part here going around. That's what I was missing, and that goes all the way back to the firewall. Jeez. So that's not coming out easy. I'll leave those bolts out for now and continue to try to get at that thing. I think I have another walk to my shop down in the barn to get maybe my standard sized crowfoot, or not crowfoot, but line wrenches have a size that will fit, but the only way I'm going to know that is to go get some. Okay, I got it broken loose. And you can just barely see it over the fender here. I got the camera on it. I don't like to do this, but I don't like to trip over the camera tripod either. Okay, so it's in the frame. Don't like to do this, but this is what I had to resort to, is a pipe wrench. And when you're standing on the passenger side of the car, you're pulling it towards you to loosen. And once I put the pipe wrench on it, it wasn't too bad. It came off fairly easy, but that's probably the only way you're ever going to get it off now. And I'm going to probably have to use that pipe wrench on it to loosen it all the way, because my hands aren't strong enough anymore to do that. So yeah, there's a good view of it. I can probably do it with channel locks now because it is loose, but it's not loose enough for me to turn with my fingers, unless that did it. Let's go this way. Again, you're pulling towards you to loosen. Once you get the tool on it, there, that's coming. Just like that, piece of cake. The next thing, and I thought maybe I would have a different way of doing this, because the pump itself bolts onto a bracket. It's got 3 bolts. And I was hoping that I could reach those bolts from the top and just take the pump off without taking the bracket off, but it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to do that. It looks like the pump has to come off. I'm sorry, I meant to say the pump bracket has to come off. So I'm going to have to find out what size screws those are. See if I can get them on the frame here. I can see 2 of them here and back there, and then one is further underneath. It's probably going to be a braille. Method of finding it. Because you can't really see it. Maybe if I had it on the lift, which now I'm debating whether or not that was a good idea or not, but it is what it is now. I got it far enough apart, I don't want to put it back together just to move it. Okay, that's a 13 millimeter bolt. should say the head on the bolt. I was able to get the ratchet in there and use it. Hope I'm not in your way here, but I was glad that came out easy. At least didn't have to worry about the bolt being frozen in the block. But in the meantime, I have dropped my little extension down in behind the shield on the front bumper. So I'm not sure. I might have to take this panel here out to retrieve it. Oh well, that's what I get for doing this myself. There's another little wire loom that's held in place. Right down there, and hopefully this tool is going to be able to help me here. I don't think it will, because this gap is too big. Although, hold on, maybe that gap can rest against the block, but I'm sure I'm getting in the way here. But that didn't help. Gonna have to pull that manually. So it turns out that's just a little push-in clip. I grabbed it with a pair of pliers and pulled it, and it came out. Now I should be able to get around and get a better shot at this second bolt back here. Now there's 3 bolts. Haven't really located the third one yet. And I have not retrieved my 3-inch extension yet either. Trying to get this in here on the bolt. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. That's 2. I got to find out where that third one is and reach under there and get it. So I'm hand holding the camera right now, so if it's a little bit shaky, that's me. What I want to show you is the 2 bolts I took out go here. And I'm going to put one of those in again while I get the one from the bottom. But the way you find that one from the bottom is you just follow the edge of this bracket all the way down down under, and it's right back in there, way under. So and I'm having trouble finding it even though I did that. Yeah, that's where it is, right there. I am going to put one of those bolts back in the top because when I take the one on the bottom out, I don't want the power steering unit falling down. I will get the tripod set up again. You probably won't see much because it's hard to get under there, but I'll do my best. One thing I have forgotten to mention is I like using 6-point sockets on these rusty northern vehicles because the bolts tend to be a little bit rusted. Okay. There. And there's not enough. Unfortunately, the only real, the only power ratchet I have, actually I have two of them. I have a 1/4 inch and a 3/8, but they're both the long ones. And it's nice to be able to fit a smaller head in than the whole ratchet, but sometimes in a case like this, the sheer length of the thing makes it difficult to get in there. Okay. I wonder if I can get in with the power ratchet by taking it in lower and going up at it. One of the videos I watched, the guy actually took the inner fender well out and the tire off in order to get in there. That's not going to work. Now that I've broken it loose, what might work for me is a universal on the end of the extension here. I'm not worried about stripping it since it's loose, or rounding off that bolt, I should say, not stripping it. So I'm going to get that and try that. Okay, I'm going to try this. The first thing I'm going to do is try to put it on there and see if I can just turn it out by hand. I think that might work. It's just that there's transmission fluid, which is the power steering fluid, over everything down here, and when I had it on before. I tried to turn it by hand. I couldn't because it was just too slippery. But with this little bit of a try another thing. Try the universal by itself on the socket. It's turning a little bit. There. Slipped off the nut or the bolt head. You can see that the power steering pump is moving now. Okay. I think I'm able to get it now. Turning it with my fingers. Now it bind up a little bit. The weight of the power steering pump's probably what's causing it to bind. Sorry if I'm in the way, but it's really tough to set up the camera at an angle that you can see and I can actually get in there to work. I find that in the process of filming things like this, or videoing, shows you my age. So what happens frequently is I'm trying to work with the camera and I say, I'm giving up, I gotta move the camera and get a better angle at it, and by the time I move the camera, it might be a minute and I get it off or on, whatever the case may be. there you have it. So that's the bolt that was underneath. Now I'm going to take out the bolt that I put on top to hold it so it wouldn't fall whenever I take it off. That should be fairly easy. Okay. And there is another piece of wiring that's one of those push-in clamps or wire holders, wire loom. It's on the back of that bracket. Why they gotta put it there is beyond me. Get that out. And we have the power steering pump out. Piece of cake. Now that I have it out, I can actually show you that this goes into the side of the block. And then that one that I couldn't see, it's way down there. You just follow this down, and there it is. Now, in order to get this off, there's 3 more bolts that hold the actual pump to the bracket. And those were the ones I was going to try to see if I could get those off, but this one down here was going to be a real problem to get to. I think I could have got those two. That one there was going to be a problem. So I'm going to go put this in the vise and take off those 3 bolts. So there we have where the power steering pump was, and as I said, there's a somewhere in here there was a place where a wire holder here went into the block, and it was in the way of the wrenches. But for now, we're going to go work on getting the pump changed. Okay, 3 bolts to remove the bracket. 13 millimeter. There it is. What I'm going to do to put this on, I'm going to put the bracket in the vise so I don't have to grip the pump like I did to take it off. Well, I guess I didn't have to, but that's the way I did it. So we're going to just do this way. I don't know if you can see that right there. That's where one of those push pins goes in that holds a wiring harness. So grab the new pump. It will only go in one way. I see what the problem is. I've got it was a good idea to clamp that in the vise, but it had to be near the end so that the pump didn't run into the vise while I'm trying to install it. These bolts, holes are in the right spot, but the bolts don't seem to want to, well, I guess they are the right size because that one's threading in. The other two tightened up to where I couldn't do them by hand really quick. So before I force those, I am going to put the socket on the manual wrench and treat it gently. They're going. I can use the power wrench, but I'm not going to tighten it all the way with the power wrench. I'm going to use the torque wrench, about 19 foot-pounds on this. That one's not anywhere. The one's not anywhere near in. Okay. Now I will go get the torque wrench and torque it on. The torque specs for these things were hard to find. As a matter of fact, they didn't even... See, that's already 15. Oops, that's already 15. That's already 15. And that's already 15. The torque specs, I believe, are supposed to be 19, so I just want to make sure I don't strip anything, so we're going to go from 15 to 17.5 because I've added 2.5 to it. That's already there. Already there. Already there. Well, I'm going to go up to 19. So 15 plus 4. Even though I tried to do it lightly with the power wrench, they were all at least 19. They might be a little bit more, but I didn't strip any bolts. Or I didn't strip the casing, actually. It would have been the power steering pump casing. So, next step is put it back on. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start with putting the bolt in, the easiest one to reach. Hopefully I can just hold it down there, get that started real quick. And it'll hang there. Gotta find out where the holes are. They're way up here. I was way off. That's easier said than done, as most things are. As you can see, it sometimes takes a while to get things started. Thank goodness. Let me try another bolt. Maybe it's got a cleaner thread on it. I know I'm getting my head in the way, but I gotta see where the bolt's gotta go. You just have to be persistent. Work at it until you get it. I had it there for a second. Okay, I got it. And the trick is, it's angled a bit upward. You can't see that from where you're working at, but that is what's happening. It's a little bit angled upward. So now the second one, since I know that it's angled a bit upward, might be a little easier. And if I get the second one in, the third one ought to be pretty easy, because it should be aligned. Okay, the second one's in. Now to get the third one, that's the one that's the hardest. Pull it all the way down. The hole through the bracket was easy. Now if the one in the block goes as easy, we'll be home free. And that is started. Okay. Hit the two upper ones with the power ratchet. I don't know whether I can get the bottom one with it or not. It was tough before. And I'm just going to gently use the ratchet. Two of them are in. With that in, should be fairly easy to turn this with my fingers. And then we'll get the ratchet on it. I don't know about getting the torque wrench in there. It's kind of tight. It's a shame. You know what? I just thought of something. Since this doesn't have to be all that tight, I have an adapter. It's a 1/4 inch drive socket, 13 millimeter. 1/2 inch ratchet. That should make it just a bit longer than what it was. And maybe I can get the wrench around that pulley. Nope, needs to be a little bit longer than that. So let's go with that and a universal joint, which I don't need to use it as a universal, but maybe I can get it in there. The trick is getting the right length for what you need. Still too short. Okay. Go back to the 3/8 inch extension. Let's see if I can turn that with my fingers. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Tough getting in there. Half of the battle, though, is actually figuring out which tools you need. It's tiring on the legs bending over like that, but this does give you an idea of how difficult it is to access this thing. It's going to be a long video unless I cut a bunch of stuff out. I am going to, since it's taken a long time, shut off the camera and save some of your time. So for a while there, I was trying to tighten a 13 millimeter bolt with a 12 millimeter socket. What I had done is I went over to the socket tray And since I had used the 13 last, I assumed that the one that wasn't sitting down in its rightful position was the 13. And it was actually a 12. So it might go a little bit easier with the right socket. Still not easy. I don't know the angle on this one is, I think, maybe the problem. I'm having trouble getting the wrench on it, getting a good grip. Looks like it's on it. I didn't bring it up from the shop, but I have basically it's like a palm ratchet. I should have had that. That would have been a lot easier. Problem is my arms don't bend where they need to bend in order to get in there. It does go a little bit upwards. Make sure we're untightening. We're getting there. Now, I wonder if I can get the torque wrench in there. That might be a challenge. I like to torque everything, but sometimes you just can't get in there. Torque wrench is still set at 19, and I got 19 there. 2 top bolts. Should be a lot easier. I think I can do that without the extension. Almost dropped that extension back down where I had to retrieve it from before. The difference is this time it didn't go in because it didn't have the 10mm socket on it like it did last time. Those 10mm, they just want to run away. Okay, let's see if we can get this top one. Top 2, I should say. There it is. It was almost there. Okay, double check. 19. So the pump is on. Now, to thread in that one that I had trouble getting out. These are always fun. They don't ever seem to want to thread. You can't get them lined up the way that they were. Okay, wiggle it a little bit. It went on. So now I don't think I have a wrench that's going to turn that. I'm going to try though. I'm going to try to use a metric 18. Try that on a ratchet. It seems like it might be ready to grab. That's not going to do it. Try the 17. I don't know that that's going to work either, but I might have to just bite the bullet. And go with the monkey wrench, or not monkey wrench, pipe wrench. It's just slipping off. Well, I know that if I ever do this job again, it's coming on, off and back on with a pipe wrench. Make sure I get this tight enough so that I don't have a leak. That should be tight enough. Okay. Start putting back the stuff I took off, trying to get that. So before I forget, I should put these things back in. They actually both went into the bracket. I'm talking about the wire looms that were the push-in containers. Going by braille here, just feeling around for the hole in the retainer that goes in it, and they're in. Okay. I'm going to move the camera to the other side. Okay, I took out a couple of 10mm screws. I should say screws with a 10mm head. And I was going to try to take this bracket off. Having done what I've done so far, I will say that the guy that took that bracket off by taking the wheel off and the inner fender liner he might have had something going there, because that was hard to get to. It might have been just as easy to take that stuff off. But what's done is done. Trying to find my 13mm again. It's on the torque wrench. That's not a 10mm. Okay. It looks like this will be able to be pushed in from the, whenever I get the return on. There's a cap on the where the return goes. I made those too tight when I adjusted them. So this is going to go on here. Try to get that on without the clamp, and then move the clamp down, and that went on easy. Okay, I'm going to put this drain hose back in. Try to twist that around to give it a better angle. this on here. Bring the clip up, put it on. Good and tight. Move the reservoir over to where it belongs. That is not the screw for that. Let's see if I can find out where that screw went, because the one for where I was trying to put it is actually a bigger diameter bolt. Okay, I found the bigger diameter bolt. It's right there. The smaller diameter one that I was trying to put there actually is for the air intake hose there. Okay, that was a little tough to get started, but it's in now. Before I put anything else further in my way, I am going to get that breaker bar out and put the belt back onto the pulley. That wasn't too bad. So let's see, what else have I got to do here? I didn't move the clip on the return hose back down. It's pretty important to do that. And I didn't put this clip back in that holds the return to the reservoir hose. Okay. Squeeze the tabs and lower it back down. And it's on. Okay. I think all we have to do now is put the air intake back on. And that will be it. Well, fill it with fluid and bleed it. That's going to be required, but there's a wire loom over here that, there you go, is kind of in the way. Have to push that back so that this will fit in. I'm going to vacuum off that air filter and then come back and put it on. Okay, I'm going to pop the air cleaner back, air filter back in, pop the housing back on. But the only thing that I'm not doing, and I guess it's okay, I'm not leaving this off so that I can check for leaks, because truth be told, if it leaks, I'm not doing it today. So I want to have it back together. Hose over here. Put that on. Flip it on. I always put one of these in that's so hard to get to. Got it. Put the air hose back on. Reconnect that wire that we took off. These things appear to be going into plastic. I don't dare use a power tool on that. Now to fill the fluid, we've got to jack up the front end so that we can turn the steering wheel. Oh my. I forgot to bring these. Don't do what I did. Do as I say, not as I do. I didn't bring the wire looms and there's a hose of some sort supposed to go in here. I neglected to do that. Those wire looms, I believe, are from the snowplow. At least some of them. Maybe all of them. That one is... I don't think that one is going to go. Doesn't feel, and then maybe that's why they had zip ties. Maybe this will hold that up. So we're going to tighten these down, and don't forget to tighten this clamp. You don't want that thing to be loose. trying to get this one wire loom up behind this so that when I tighten this, it will naturally hold it. And I think we're there. So it took a long time to get it apart. Putting it back together, relatively easy. So if you're fortunate enough to be down south, this will be a much easier job than us people up north. So, next thing we'll do is we'll put automatic transmission fluid, type 4, into the reservoir until it's full, and then we'll go jack it up, crank the steering back and forth a bunch of times, so that we bleed all of the air out of the system. Otherwise we'll have jerky steering. Supposed to take less than 2 quarts. I forget the exact measurement. I'm going to put the cap on, at least loosely, so that it doesn't spit fluid out. But first, I'm going to shut off the video, put the jack under the differential and jack it up high enough that I can get some jack stands under it, because I got to get in and out of the Jeep probably to bleed it. Wheels are up, we're on jack stands and a jack. Now it's time to go in without the engine running and cycle the steering left and right, check the fluid, cycle it some more, check the fluid, cycle it some more, till the fluid is no longer going down. I've moved this all the way left, all the way right, probably a good 20 times. It's hard to tell on the video, but the level is maybe an inch below this lip here, and I found that if I filled it up to that lip, it just spit it out. So I think it's ready to be started and turned a couple times, and then I'm going to shut it off and check the fluid level. I don't want to run it too long because I don't want to get air in the system. When I started it, it sounded like it spit air into this reservoir a couple times. Yep, there's a little bit of foam there. Not a whole lot. So I'm going to top that off a little bit. And then it felt pretty good, but I'm going to top that off a little bit and try it again. Topped it off, started it, moved it from Lock to lock a couple times. No air bubbles. Seems like I did a fairly good job of bleeding it. There was just probably a little bit in the return line whenever I started it the first time. So I'm going to call that a wrap. It was a struggle, mostly because of the rust and the fitting sizes were no longer what they should have been, and the wrench didn't fit. So that was the main struggle. Now I know that I can fit a pipe wrench in there and take it off if I have to. So short of changing the entire line over to the steering box, the steering gear, there's not a whole lot I can do about that. But it should be good now for another 50,000 miles. So I hope this helped you, even if it's what not to do. I always show the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching.